In this video, I'm going to be addressing guilt. It can be a very influential aspect of ourself that is buried deep within the unconscious, and guilt can affect all of us. We can certainly carry guilt, and it can prevent us from feeling free and liberated, for being all that we want to be, for being our true self. So in this video, I'm going to break down where guilt comes from, how we can observe guilt to move through it in the healthiest way possible, how we can also observe guilt in our behavioral patterns, and where guilt may have come from during your formative years. So guilt and shame are very connected. I've talked about shame before in other videos. I want to single out guilt in this particular video so that we can make sense of this component that many of us can go through, that many of us can deal with, and that can truly hold us back from being all that we're meant to be, our true self. If we're harboring guilt, there's going to be a very common feeling or notion or sensation that will commonly interrupt our flow with life experiences, that will commonly also perpetuate a unconscious feeling and notion that we are not doing enough. So I believe this came from Dr. Gabor Mate. He has referenced this before. The difference between shame and guilt is shame is when we feel that we are not enough. Guilt is when we feel that we are not doing enough. Guilt can trap us into unhealthy relationship patterns and can trap us into unhealthy relationship experiences with ourself, not only externally, but within ourself. Feeling that we owe people something, that we have to do certain things or be a certain person because other people expect that of us. We have a felt responsibility since early life to act a certain way, to be a certain way, to help others a certain way that may not exactly fit with who we are. It may also fragment our true self of what we really want to experience in life and who we are at our core fundamental level. It can also interrupt how we are functioning in the world, how we are functioning with relationship dynamics, how we are showing up, and it can prevent us from feeling that we are showing up fully. Then what can happen is a whole web of behavioral experiences, patterns, and manifestations will arise due to this buried feeling and false belief of guilt. And remembering most importantly that our formative years was a playground in many different ways. It was also a playground of learning. Now we can look back at our formative years as an experience that has caused great pain and hurt and suffering and created these false beliefs that have restricted us from living freely and fully. But these are all experiences, and there's no fault of anyone for the experiences imposed onto us. We are now at a time where we get to look at these experiences or look at these beliefs or these patterns within ourselves to set ourselves free. And not only do we set ourselves free, we learn through them, we grow through them, we have great wisdom and depth because of them. So please do not look at past experiences as bad or as wrong, or maybe yourself feeling wrong or flawed because you are experiencing guilt. We have all, most likely, a lot of us, if not all of us, have experienced guilt in our lifetime. This is the contrast of our emotions, of our experiences. This offers, again, great depth and growing opportunities and great opportunities for self-awareness and self-improvement, and also to help others. All right, so we're going to go into guilt. First off, what are the manifestations? What are the behaviors that stem from this false belief of guilt? Some of the common behaviors could be avoidance. So this could be when individuals may avoid certain situations, people, or reminders related to guilt. Now, we can easily cut people out. We can easily remove ourselves from social situations, from family situations. This can go either way. This can go where we feel that we're carrying guilt, that we haven't done enough, maybe that we've done bad things, maybe that we've hurt someone, or we didn't do things right in the eyes of other people or within ourselves. And therefore, we may even just shut people out altogether, because that sometimes is the easiest way to go for us to completely close the door on someone or life experiences or life itself. And so this is a very, very, I feel, go-to behavioral pattern that one can find themselves in if they are facing guilt or harboring guilt within, or avoiding the feeling of guilt or experiencing guilt again, because it can bring up some uncomfortableness, uncomfortable memories, or even attachments to certain situations, or even beliefs, diminishing one's full potential and confidence within self. And so also it's important to remember that guilt diminishes our confidence. It actually also prevents us from feeling that we are doing enough, that we are showing up enough, that we are giving enough. The next one is going to be compensatory actions. This is where some individuals may try to make up for their perceived wrongs by overcompensating through good deeds or excessive apologies. This one is very crucial, because what can happen if we feel that we are doing things wrong, which is basically a false perception on our actions and reality based on other people's perceptions. So make sure to watch the video of the right versus wrong in society, how society has wrong made individuals and us to feel that we are constantly having to monitor our actions, our behaviors, who we are, what we say, in case we are doing something wrong, to avoid criticism or judgmentalness or attack from our outer environment or from our inner self, feeling that we said something wrong or we weren't showing up the right way. And right and wrong is in the eye of the beholder. It is based on personal perceptions. Unfortunately, when we're young, we may be raised with very strong perceptions on what is right versus wrong. It's also a part of society. We have very strict rules in society, and some of them are great and wonderful that help us. Some of them are excessive that actually prevent us from being all that we can be, that limit our full potential. So when we are growing up in our life, we tend to become very sensitive to what could potentially be wrong. We may also feel that if we do something wrong within our own perception or the perception of others, we can overcompensate by working extra hard, giving excessively, feeling that, almost building a sense of anxiety and feeling that we have to correct the situation and correct ourselves. We may ruminate over our wrongness, our wrong making of what we may have done wrong and done something wrong in a certain manner, and therefore carry the stories, replay the stories, think about it often, have it plague our existence. And tell me if you have experienced this, because I feel that many of us have. And it can go on and on and on until we break this cycle and realize that we are enough and that we have to take ownership of ourselves, not based on what other people expect of us and not based on what other people are projecting onto us. When we build the self-confidence within ourselves, the alignment, the relationship within ourselves, guilt will slowly start to fade away. It's going to be important to understand where guilt comes from and understanding how it plays into our mind, our emotions, our behaviors, and these particular behavioral patterns, these manifestations, to identify them, to shine light on them so you can let them go. And by identifying them, of course, by shining light on them is a powerful step of self-actualization. When you do shine light on these behaviors, not through the lens of criticizing ourselves, but through observing and seeing it, you change it. You begin to let it go. The next one is going to be self-punishment. So this can manifest as self-sabotage, where individuals undermine their own happiness or success. This can also come in as the overthinking, being really hard on ourselves. Oh, I wish I never said that. I shouldn't have done that. I hope they don't think something bad of me. Where we can turn this self-punishment inward, we're really harming ourselves. We're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. And we're limiting ourselves from feeling confident with ourselves, with our voice, with what we've done. And if we have made a mistake, if we have caused wrong in any kind of way, or if we've inflicted or projected maybe some of our shadow onto someone else, we can always apologize and leave it there so that we are not taking it home with us, so that it's not occupying our day, it's not occupying our space, and we can find peace within the natural rhythm of life, with ourselves, and with also, of course, who we truly are. So self-punishment can show up in many different ways. It can show up as self-sabotage. It can show up as self-criticism. It can show up as placing a lot of negative emotions and thoughts onto ourselves. And it can also very, very subtly and subconsciously show up in how we are navigating interpersonal relationships, excessive apologizing, overextending ourselves again, right? So we can really harm ourselves by carrying excessive guilt, and we can prevent ourselves from moving forward in life and moving in a direction that we feel truly in alignment with, that our heart is calling us towards. It can prevent us from so many experiences in life, and most importantly, finding peace within ourselves. On the emotional front, our emotions are a filter of how we sense, how we feel, how we sense life and our outer environments, how we sense within our senses within ourselves, how we navigate interpersonal relationships, how we feel, how our false belief system or our true belief system is connecting with us in a deeper way. Our emotions are vital for understanding our deeper self. One of the emotional manifestations or symptoms could be shame. So guilt can evolve into shame, leading to feelings of worthlessness or self-loathing. So remember, shame is when we do not feel that we are enough, when we have lost the connection of ourselves, when we have lost a sense of self-worth, right? So if we have not addressed guilt within ourselves, if we have not brought ourselves into our center and filled our heart and come to a place of self-acceptance, it can exasperate and then manifest into shame. Shame also is a feeling of we are not enough. Therefore, we may be ashamed of who we are, how we're acting, how we look. We may also be very cautious about our surroundings, be very paranoid about interpersonal relationships. It shields us back from so much in life. The other emotional symptom could be anxiety. So the fear of being judged or discovered can lead to chronic anxiety. So if one is harboring guilt, and if guilt in the unconscious self is perpetuating emotional reactions unconsciously within someone's being, they can be hypersensitive to their environments. They can be constantly checking how they look. They could be comparing themselves to others. They could be analyzing themselves as they speak, as they navigate in interpersonal relationships. They could be constantly hypervigilant with their surroundings and with themselves. Depression can also be an emotional symptom where persistent guilt can contribute to feelings of hopelessness and sadness. So if one has not turned guilt into a superpower, into confidence and alignment within self, and worked through guilt to dissolve it, to understand it, to shine light on it, and return to a state of wholeness within, a place of self-acceptance, then the guilt can eventually turn into depression and a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And this is when one has lost self-agency and has lost the power within themselves to understand that they are the true creators, that they are powerful beings, that they can create the change in their lives and is part of their life story that they can own and that they can create and cultivate. So fortunately, depression is a good indicator and allows for a lot of self-discovery and a lot of realizations to occur and develop when one goes into depression, to understand the origin or some of the underlying effects of depression. However, it can also lead to a very strong cycle if one hasn't addressed this within themselves, the correlations and the connections with guilt, for example. False beliefs are what has been formed within our unconscious self since early life. We also do carry these false beliefs in through our ancestral lineage, through our family beliefs. and through past life. Some of the lessons that we need to learn in this lifetime are carried through. These are going to be the hard beliefs. These are going to be the hard ones that are so deeply, deeply hardwired within our unconscious self that may take lessons happening over and over and over again to fully understand and to fully grasp. But like I said, when we see these, when we understand them, we become wiser, we become enriched, we become whole and strong and full because we have seen these aspects of ourselves. So the false beliefs are opposite contrast to true beliefs. And true beliefs we all have false beliefs as well. True beliefs are connected to our true self. They are true beliefs of I trust, I am unconditional love, life is easy, life happens for me. So these are true beliefs that we all have, but unfortunately during our formative years, or what we've carried into this lifetime can overshadow the true beliefs with our false beliefs. So I use this little bit of an analogy where false beliefs can become very strong and overshadow our true beliefs until we see them, until we shine light on the false beliefs and strengthen our true beliefs. So our true beliefs can become our wholeness, or can become at least our strength in our truth, right? So we can develop our true beliefs to be stronger. So we are more empowered and emboldened with our existence rather than having the false beliefs completely overshadowing our true beliefs and taking over our consciousness. One of the false beliefs that can be used as an example is overgeneralization. So a false belief believing that one mistake defines one's character, or that they will always be guilty of wrongdoing. This comes from early life, maybe being punished or told that one was doing something wrong and it led to some catastrophic event, or maybe they had a shock within their system of, I thought I was doing something right, and then all of a sudden there was a punishment, or told that one was doing something wrong, and it led to an emotional reaction or a bit of a shock to the system, where one has then believed, false belief, that they are doing something wrong, or that doing something wrong is going to lead to something catastrophic. This will also overgeneralize their feeling and sensation of right versus wrong. This is a multidimensional aspect of ourselves, guilt. There are so many different variations. There are so many different levels and degrees and experiences and manifestations and false beliefs that are associated with it. But when there has been a significant experience in one's early life or past life, if you want to go that far, then it can feel very generalized, and then it can leave a very generalized feeling and sense of fear around one's actions and reactions to life and behaviors and doings in life. The next one is going to be personal responsibility, taking on excessive responsibility for events outside one's control, feeling guilty for things they didn't cause. This can come from early life, where there have been a lot of demands placed on a specific individual in early life, where they feel responsible for everything, if not everything, a lot. And this responsibility can lead to excessive guilt if they are not doing enough. So if a lot of responsibility has been placed on a child in early life, it grows and grows and grows and becomes a very, very strong false belief that they are responsible for things that are even out of their control or out of their domain. So they may feel guilty for things that they didn't even do. If someone has projected their own perfectionism or criticisms onto a person who already has this false belief, they may show up even more and try to correct it, even though it wasn't their doing, or they aren't responsible or haven't been or weren't responsible for that particular outcome or that particular doing. They will then take on the responsibility for it, feeling that it is their own. With the book of Dr. Michael Lincoln, who I reference often, the physical, the bodily manifestation is anger turned against the self, with a resulting self-attacking. It leads to self-punishment and pain. Self-hobbling illnesses like emphysema and herpes are the result. So it goes back to a few of the manifestations, the behavioral manifestations or behavioral patterns that one can find themselves in when dealing with guilt. This physical symptom of guilt is when the system is turned to is attacking the self, essentially. So when one feels like they are not doing enough, so they internalize, they're hard on themselves, they blame themselves, they take on excessive responsibility, they take on the responsibility and the projections of others. And so the system turns inward. And so it basically is an inward attack towards the system, towards the body. Another manifestation could be interpersonal conflict, when guilt can cause strain in relationships, leading to resentment, misunderstandings, or withdrawal. And this ties into a few of the other examples that I have outlined, where there could be a whole web that is contributed to the feeling of guilt, where one may withdraw altogether. There could be uncontrollable outbursts or reactions. All right, so where does this come from? What are some of the examples from our formative years that have been part of developing guilt within ourselves? Now, before I go into this, please remember that everyone has gone through their experiences. Your parents' parents, everyone, every single person and human being on this planet has experienced some degree level of guilt and or has contributed to the feeling, the sensation, the false belief of guilt within other people. This is the interweb of interpersonal relationships. This is the interweb of the connection with everyone else, and this is what we're breaking free from. So when we look at this is looking at our past through compassion, please. This is looking at our past through curiosity, understanding that these experiences are experiences and they allow for greater self-development if we look at these through the lens of compassion and curiosity. Being curious, trying to connect the dots, spending time to contemplate, spending time to reflect, spending time to feel, being gentle with oneself, being compassionate with oneself. And if you find guilt arising within your system, within your body, take a pause. Take a pause, breathe, return to the breath, and let it go. Slowly retrain your unconscious self, retrain your body to not respond to guilt unconsciously, so that you are training your body to feel safe, so that you are training your unconscious that you are safe and that you can trust yourself, that you can trust the world, and most importantly, that you can feel fully accepted within yourself, self-acceptance, feeling whole, that you are enough and that you are doing enough. And feeling that within yourself and bringing it into your center and what that feels like, taking a pause and say, you know what, I've showed up a lot. I've showed up enough. I am enough. I did enough. And then turn around into the situation if you want to go out and engage with a particular relationship dynamic or in the outer world with compassion, care to correct the situation, because also other people are responding and interacting with us based on how we feel within ourselves and the signals that we send out into the world. So other people are going to be unconsciously responding to our guilt complex that we have within our false belief system. And once we address this and once we stand in our truth, we start establishing healthier boundaries. People might react. People might not like it. People might be fine with it. So we have to be aware that the outer world is going to start to change based on how we are feeling within ourselves. And there's no fear with that. There can be fear with that, but try not to have fear and embrace the empowerment that you have within yourself to start creating healthier relationship dynamics. All right. So going into the formative years, one of the experiences from formative years could be a parenting style of an overly critical or demanding parent or parents that could instill a sense of guilt in the child when they fail to meet expectations, right? And this comes down to felt responsibilities. If a child isn't doing something right, if they're doing something wrong, this goes into the criticism archetype that I also recorded a video on that I highly suggest watching. This is when we are criticized or wrong made. Again, this is no fault of anyone's. These are experiences. But once we can see the patterns of our past and how they're playing into our present moment, we get to redesign this story. We get to let go of the story and the patterns of the past to create new pathways of confidence and alignment with our whole self. Cultural norms can also be a factor in this since formative years. So, cultural beliefs about right and wrong can create a framework that influences the feelings of guilt. This can come from cultural or even religious beliefs of not doing things right. Then something is going to happen. There's going to be punishment. You're wrong. You're doing something wrong. There can be excessive guilt harbored within oneself, that they are constantly trying to be right, to show up the right way, to be the right person, to help others the right way, even if it might create inner conflict within oneself. The other one can be peer influence. So social pressures and the need for acceptance can lead to guilt when one feels they don't fit in or adhere to group norms. This also comes from a lack of self-acceptance when one is looking towards peers for approval, for acceptance within cultural and societal groups, peer groups, friendships, work environments, etc. When one is continually looking outward rather than inward to create the solid foundation within themselves to cultivate self-acceptance within. And then the more extreme traumatic experiences, such as abuse or neglect, can lead to deep-seated feelings of guilt, especially if a child believes they could have done something to prevent it. Everything that has happened in our past has happened and is in the past. It is not part of our present moment. It is a story. It is a memory. If we hold on to it and if we allow for the memory in the story to define who we are, we cannot change the past, but we can improve our present by letting go of the past, by coming to terms with who we are, by regaining a sense of a connection with self, a sense of wholeness, a sense of self-acceptance, love, and forgiveness to what has happened in the past, so we can move on, so that we can release from the grips of guilt that maybe we could have done something differently or done something better. That's not the case. There are many different also modalities that will help with this one: returning to child self, forgiveness, meditations. You can go into specific healing modalities that will help you understand the relationship with the subconscious, the false belief system, the energetic weight that has been carried, the emotional weight. So there are many different modalities, many different teachings, and a lot of self-reflection, a lot of inner work always is so powerful for us to master ourselves and to understand ourselves and to navigate the complexities of the interweb from these stories of the past, the false beliefs that have been created, which in this case is going to be an essence of guilt, and how we can understand this relationship within ourselves to come to peace with the past, to heal the past, to forgive, and to eventually move into that state of wholeness and alignment, resolving guilt altogether and knowing that we are enough. That we are enough and we are doing enough. And then knowing that the path that we choose for ourselves is our path, that we're not here to limit ourselves based on what other people expect or based on the expectations within the stories of our past that replay within our mind, that replay within our emotional self, so that we can set ourselves free. All right, so I hope this video offered you some guidance when you need it the most. If you want to go deeper into guilt, you can also, of course, work with me directly or be part of the Shadow Project, where we go into this and more to understand the interconnectedness within our false belief system, within the shadow, within the unconscious, and to set ourselves free for greater wholeness, alignment, and self-mastery. So I hope this video offered you some more guidance as you move along, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Take care.